We're excited to announce the first ever, first of its kind higher education podcast conference, brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio here recording another episode of the EdUp Experience. We've recently passed over 350 college and university presidents interviewed on this podcast from, I don't know how many countries, more than one, that's for sure. And that's a very proud thing for us here at EdUp. And I do want to just remind the audience of one thing very quickly. This is an important one because EdUp is here, of course, to serve you. So you might have writers out there. Maybe you're a college president and you want to write something. You want to write something about great things happening at your college or university. Maybe the trade publications aren't right for this piece that you have. Maybe because there isn't an angle. Sometimes there's negativity built into this news stories, and at EdUp, we want to tell good stories. We want to know what's really innovative, what's really good programs, good outcomes, and we're going to take a piece of our website at the EdUp Experience, and we've turned it into EdUp Editorials, where we are publishing work by our colleagues across higher education who want to tell positive stories about what's happening in the industry so we can restore that public trust. We're going to publish it, get you a link, and promote it to our global audience. So make sure you get the word out there to people working around and for you. Speaking of people I work for, I have brought one of those people here to the microphone as my co-host today. Ladies and gentlemen, she's been here before. She'll be here again. She always comes ready to rock and roll. I don't think there's an off button on this person. She's high functioning, ready to go, and always has great insight. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. She's Laura Ibsen. She is the CEO of Elucian. Laura, welcome back to an Ed Up Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, Joe. Ready to go on this one. I couldn't be more excited for you to introduce this next amazing guest.
Oh, there was a pause there. There was almost a mistake in it.
I purposely did that for you to introduce because this one is special.
Well, I agree, and usually I'll do more pomp and circumstance, but I want to get him on the microphone because you guys already started talking, and I was like, you can't do that. I got to hit the record button. This is not fair. We got to get this content on the air. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. He's Dr. Chris Fiorentino. He is the interim chancellor of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, better known as PASSHE. Chris, welcome to an Ed Up Mike. How are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Thank you for having me. Laura, hello. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
Fiorentino, Italiano. I think there's some Italian built in there. Salustio and a Fiorentino. When you get us on the microphone, nobody's going to be quiet around here.
People can't see our hands, but we're waving our hands, right?
Yes. I'm gonna do Ibsentino today.
All right, I like it. Chris, we always like to level set. Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, PASSHE. If you don't know PASSHE, you're not probably listening to what's happening in higher education, but for the one person out there that goes, what is this PASSHE thing and why should I care? Tell us about it. What do you do? How do you do it?
PASSHE is the state's university system of Pennsylvania, the public universities owned by the Commonwealth. There are 10 universities. They have a long history. They all started as normal schools, preparing teacher educators way back 100 plus years ago, and evolved over time into state teachers' colleges and eventually comprehensive universities. And that's the modern day PASSHE. We're graduating about 21,000 students a year. About 80% of them stay in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania after they graduate. So we are truly providing a well-educated workforce to meet the needs of businesses and other organizations in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
You know, Laura, before I transition over to you, it's one question I always have, and I think for state higher ed systems, obviously a big key to the success of the system and the success of the economy and the state economy is to keep students who are in Pennsylvania and in the system, as it were. I know that's got to be a focus. Probably one of your top focus items is keeping students in the state after they graduate. How do you think about that? Because it's all about economy, right? It's about this cycle. It's about students who come to school, get out, contribute to the economy, have kids who go to school, the Pennsylvania system, and so on. Talk about impact.
Well, about 90% of our students are from Pennsylvania, so we do have an edge in that regard. We actually, we're also very proud that we are importers of graduates. We recruit from the neighboring states, and many times students will come here to go to school and then they will stay here. And the fact that so many of our students do graduate, take their first job here, set up their lives here, work and live in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is very important. And when we go to the legislature asking for support, we point out the fact that supporting these universities is an investment in the future of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're always struggling to try to get enough college graduates to fill the job needs that are in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm sure you're aware of the demographic challenges that have existed, not just here, but many places all over the country. The high school graduating population has been declining, and so we're continuing to work hard to try to recruit students who can meet the needs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Laura, over to you, because I know you know the state system very well here in Pennsylvania and have been working with leaders at the system for a while now and really introduced me to Chris, which thank you very much for doing that. Tell us maybe, when we talk about systems, the state system of higher education, systems is an important concept in this, isn't it?
Well, systems is a huge concept and something that Chris was a big part of when Chancellor Greenstein was here leading what I know to be the anchor university when you were president of Westchester University and building models. I mean, one of the most exciting things that you did was building the Science and Engineering Center, attracting students to modern future, what the future is, and a showcase for Pennsylvania. But at the core, it's how do you take the value of what a Westchester built and really expose that to all students in Pennsylvania and some that are even coming in from out of state online. And so a system at the core, we believe, is around data and insights and connecting all the amazing investments that the state and others make in this system. And I guess for me, Chris, you retired, but you came back because it feels like there's more work to do to actually take the system to the next level. And I'm just curious, when you talk about system now and the work that we've done together with moving to cloud and connecting the amazing things that all of the institutions do, what does that look like for you today? And where do you want the system to go to have that economic impact for the state and to enrich the lives of all students?
Well, that's a big question. I could probably spend the rest of our time talking about that. But the fact is,
take cliff notes.
I did retire, and then of course Dan Greenstein, who came here and had a huge impact on the Pennsylvania state system, announced that he was leaving, and they've pulled me back to serve as an interim in his position. And the big thing that he was focused on, what we call here systemness. One of the major aspects of it is if you're going to have Penn universities functioning as a system, they have to be able to communicate effectively. And I'm not talking about the telephone. I'm talking about our student record systems and so forth. And the system that he inherited, everybody had their own separate student record system. And it was very difficult for collaboration and communication. And of course, as you are certainly well aware, we are in the midst of an implementation of an Lucian system that will put everybody on the same platform and that will facilitate our ability to collaborate among universities, which is a very critical piece going forward. As we face the demographic declines, and of course, much of Pennsylvania is rural, it's very important that we continue to provide educational opportunities in these rural areas, and having the ability to connect students not only with the universities that are in their part of the state, but to the extent that they're getting smaller and facing challenges around operating within a smaller footprint, we are able to continue to offer a wide array of programs from around the system by utilizing this common system, student record system that we're implementing right now. It's almost finished, as you know, getting closer, and it's going to be a huge thing for us to leverage the potential of 10 universities collaborating together.
And Chris, just a shout out to you for everything that you've done to accelerate that, and to your amazing CIO, Rosa Lara, who's done tremendous work. This is a system that is not, it doesn't have a lot of fat, right? It's lean, it's focused, it executes, and I do think that sets you apart in terms of what you've been able to accomplish, and the collaboration with the other 10, with all the 10 together, really has made a difference. So, great team. I just want to add that. And maybe, as you think future on the system, how do you look at what students are looking at most? Is the degree worth it? What are the types of programs and credentials I can get to tie to jobs? How might the system be able to impact this in an age where AI is growing leaps and bounds? 60% of students in college today are going to get jobs that don't even exist. What's going to matter for the system next?
Well, that's a huge challenge for all of us. There are several things we're doing. First of all, we're very focused on just what are the needs that the businesses and other organizations in the Commonwealth have. What kind of graduates do they need? And I think a very important point that often gets lost in the discussion about specific credentials. A college degree is an education. It's preparing students to be problem solvers and critical thinkers. And when you're in a world such as what you just described, where jobs may not exist yet, how do you prepare people for jobs that don't exist? Well, you educate them so that they're flexible, that they have problem solving skills, and they can write, and they can present, and they can work as part of a team. And these are all very important aspects of the education. We don't train people, we educate them, and they come away in many cases with specific skills related to a discipline. I remember some years ago, a partner at one of the major accounting firms said to me, when a student graduates with an accounting degree, we know that they know debits and credits. What else can they do? What else have they taken away from their education that's going to make them valuable to us? And that's really what's going to put our graduates in a position to be flexible enough to adapt to the changing landscape that they're going to be facing. And AI, you mentioned AI. AI is a blessing and a curse. It's an incredible tool. The things that people can do. I have 3 children who are much more involved in it than I am, adult children, and they're telling me the incredible things that they can accomplish with that. It also, there are issues with it replacing certain types of tasks, and we need to be careful in terms of education. We want to make sure that our students are actually getting educated, that we're making the AI tools available and leveraging them, and not just allowing them to be utilized to avoid work, which is certainly a possibility. So it remains an interesting challenge in higher education and in the world at large, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out over time. There's concern that AI is going to replace certain jobs, and that certainly seems to be the case. But we are still going to need people who can think and solve problems and can play those kinds of leadership roles in the world that will be able to leverage AI, not be replaced by it.
I think that's where our humanness will take center stage. Sometimes we hide behind digital, and we all will become more human if AI is actually a jumpstart and a helper. And I heard someone say, you may not need to have accountants, but you certainly need to have people that supervise what an agent might do with accounting if AI knows accounting better. But I'm going to turn it back to Joe, because Joe's had some insights on AI and the ethics of AI and things. We were at a boot camp in California a couple of weeks ago with 60 college presidents, and it was quite illuminating.
Thank you, Laura, for that amazing segue when I wasn't prepared. No, I'm just messing with you. I do that to her all the time, Chris. I'm like, And Laura Ipson, everyone. And then she goes, Joe, she gets me afterwards. No, she doesn't. But it is the
okay. And so
point
I'm
is
going
well taken because adoption curves. Yeah. I was pausing. That's okay.
As you were saying, Joe.
As I was saying, it must have been a really impactful statement that I get interrupted saying, but the adoption curve for artificial intelligence is vast, right? We talk about adoption, and one of the things that I see for college and university professionals is how do we stay. This is the first time I think in the history of universities where we're almost behind where the student is. We have to catch up to where the student is and then pass them so that we can teach them, because there's an expectation that they're going to learn, right? Because the business that they go into for their job is going to say, what AI might you bring to the table so you can increase efficiency in this job? And right now, in some colleges and universities, there's faculty saying, if you cheat in this class, you're out. And that alone it's a cognitive dissonance, right? How do we teach you the skills you're going to need in the workforce when we're not fully accepting those skills within our own business? That's a big divide to fill, Chris. So I'm looking for you to answer the question. No, I mean, do you think that's a big deal for us? How do we catch up and how do we bring everybody along?
Well, it's funny. As I was listening to your assessment of it, it kind of brought back an earlier era, because AI is new, but technology changes are certainly not new. We had to adapt to the World Wide Web, and I can remember a time, for example, where I had an advisory board when I was a dean, and I remember one of the members of the advisory board saying, and this was 25 years ago. When students graduate from college, we assume that when we hire them, they will come into our organizations and they will be the most sophisticated Excel user in the organization. And I took that comment back to the department chairs and I said, okay, tell me about how you're utilizing Excel spreadsheets in your classes, because I can tell you people are expecting our students to be able to do it. And it was very interesting. The response was, well, some of the students have had some Excel and some haven't. So, we don't really have time to stop and teach them. And so we can't really. And I said, no, that's not acceptable. We have to figure out how we can get to the point where we are ready to do this stuff so that we can make sure that when we're graduating students, they are ready to do it. And this is just the latest version of that evolutionary process. And one of the nice things about a university is that when new technology like that is created, you're always going to have people who are curious and are going to play with it. And they're going to be on the leading edge of this stuff. And then they're going to teach their colleagues about it. And eventually it's going to gain some traction and take hold on a broader level. We need to make sure that we're providing them with the resources they need, with the technology, with the time, the tools, to be able to learn what they need to learn. Because you're right, the students are coming in having a very sophisticated technology experience. But again, one of the things I learned a long time ago is that the fact that they come in as technology users doesn't necessarily mean that they want their careers to be around technology. They just like to be able to text people on the phone or whatever the latest version of things is. And so we have to make sure that we are recognizing what has to be incorporated into our programs to make sure that when our students graduate and go out into the world, they're able to meet the demands that are out there. And of course, in order for us to be able to achieve that, we have to be communicating with the world out there to figure out what do college graduates need to be able to do for you now compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So these conversations are ongoing all the time.
You said something that really resonated with me, sort of going around with this conversation. Earlier when Laura was talking to you, you said that part of restoring the value of a college degree, and I'm paraphrasing, is that college students who have a college degree have a propensity to learn. They're going to learn. Even though the job hasn't been created, there's always jobs that aren't created. That are going to, but if you have the ability to learn quickly and critically think, you'll learn that job. And we've done a really poor job in higher ed, I will tell you. And I feel like I have a pretty validated perspective because I've talked to so many people. we've done a poor job of sort of fighting back against this narrative that a college degree doesn't have value because it doesn't map to this one job you might get out of college. What about the fifth job? We don't think about that kind of stuff. We're mapping it to the one job, which is great because you still need that. But you do need something else, which is good education. And we all need it because it's not like our society can go uneducated and everything's going to move along as it is. We have to have people that are willing to learn. But that means educating lots of people. And then you come back to what you said about Pennsylvania. That's about there are people within the state of Pennsylvania that probably have some college no credential that are not thinking about going to college, maybe because they don't have the resources, the access, because they're in a rural area. You come out of retirement. So there must be a calling here to bring education to everyone. What does that mean as a public institution to come out of retirement with these challenges? And to come out of retirement, I feel like you're running down, like you got your Rocky gloves on and you're like ready to tackle these big problems. But also at the same time, not to forget that the value of education is for everyone. And how do we get it to everyone? And why does that matter?
Well, again, you covered a lot of ground there, and
it was like 8 questions all at
once. I'll see if I can unpack a few of them. Well, it is interesting. I did retire, and when I got the opportunity to come back, all of a sudden I became very excited again because this is just an ongoing endeavor. And I spent 41 years, as Laura mentioned, in public higher education before I came back, so my meter's running again. And I love it because what we do is we prepare people, and very often we're taking people who are coming out of challenging circumstances, and we prepare them and put them on a different life trajectory in many cases. It's absolutely the most satisfying work that you can imagine. And in terms of I wanted to comment about the education component, the first job versus the third job, whatever. There's sort of a mindset out there that there's a linear path. You need to go to college and you need to take a degree. And I commented on accounting before. You take an accounting degree and you become an accountant, and that's very simple and straightforward, and you can see the path. But many people, maybe even most people, don't have paths quite that simple, especially over time. They tend to change jobs. Maybe they start as an accountant and then they realize they don't want to be an accountant anymore. They want to open their own business or whatever it might be. So it's hard to convince people sometimes, the stakeholders, let's say, that while the majors are certainly an important part of the educational experience for the students, the piece we call the general education, where they're going to be getting the critical thinking skills and the problem solving skills and the writing skills, that is also a critical part of the education, and maybe in the scheme of things, more important than whatever your particular first major is, because you may end up on an entirely different path. So, so that to me is a very important aspect of things. And it's difficult for parents because they want to be confident that their kids are going to graduate and they're going to go get a job and everything's going to be right with the world. But in many cases, they're not going to stay in that job. They're going to go somewhere else. Then picking up on the other theme that you touched on and is what I would call the access theme. There's a lot of talk these days about selective universities and admitting students and not admitting other students. The thing that's important to understand about public higher education is we are inclusive institutions. We know in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as I said earlier, we don't have enough in our traditional age population of high school graduates to fill all the seats in our universities, whether it be the public universities or private universities in the Commonwealth. We don't have enough graduates. And related to that, we don't have enough people with college credentials to fill all the jobs that are out there that require college credentials. The statistics in Pennsylvania right now, about 53% of the working population has a college credential of one kind or another. And we really need about 60% to fill all the jobs that are out there. So where are we going to get these additional students if they're not coming out of our high schools? Well, there are students coming out of our high schools who maybe traditionally would not have considered college to be their best option. Maybe they didn't feel that they were that successful or that well prepared. What we find is that in many cases, students who are in this category Maybe they come from a challenging childhood or a low income background, or nobody in their family ever attended a college or university, so they have no role model, so they don't have a frame of reference. But they're clever, they're bright, and they have potential. So how do we find them, attract them, and then make sure that if we're convincing them that college is for them, how do we make sure that they have the preparation that is necessary to be able to be successful? So that's the big challenge. That's one of the things that we're working on. And just to quickly pick up on the second one, you mentioned the group that have some college and then didn't finish. Well, they're out there, and maybe there are a lot of them who are thinking, gee, I'd like to go back to college, but I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. It's on us to figure out how we can get to them and make sure that they know that we're here, and we are here to help them figure out how to get their credits assessed, how to get their life experience assessed so they can get credit for life experience, and get them back into the pipeline so that they can become part of this solution of the 60% college graduates we need to fill all these jobs. So that was a long answer to respond to your long question.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you got all those themes, to be quite honest.
No, that was excellent. It's a sign of a phenomenal listener and thinker. When you think about that pipeline, there's certainly many barriers. We see sometimes students of all ages and learners that need to go back for reskilling, want to. There's fear. I haven't been in school for a long time. I'm worried. I don't want to take a test. Overcoming fear, overcoming situations of, family. Will I be successful online? Financial. You've been a leader in helping to keep tuition down for students, making it more accessible because it's inclusive for everyone. What else are you seeing in terms of how you do that and overcome those barriers? Are there some specific examples of what PASSHE is doing, or you're thinking about, or you're going to go and do to bring down those barriers?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing more and more, and not just in Pennsylvania, but certainly here, is that we need additional people who are beyond the faculty who are going to work with these people. They're called a number of different things. At Westchester, we call them program counselors, and it's concierge service. But they're going to come and they're going to have whatever set of issues and challenges they have. We need to listen to what their challenges are, and we need to figure out how we're going to help them. Maybe they don't have a strong math background or writing background that's going to be considered college level preparation. Maybe they don't have the income in their family to be able to support them through college. Again, I mentioned the first generation students who have no frame of reference about what college is like, that nobody can tell them what to expect. It's our responsibility to meet them where they are. What I always used to say when I was the president of Westchester is if we're going to invite these students to our campus, we need to do everything in our power to support them and put them in a position to be successful. We can't do the work for them. We can't lower the bar. They're still going to have to meet all the standards. If we're graduating accountants and nurses and teachers and social workers, these are all people who are going to have to go out and take licensure exams. So they're going to have to meet the standards that will enable them to be licensed. So it's not just enough to lower the standards at a university to kind of let them sneak through. That's not going to do them any good or the society any good. And so we need to help them rise up and meet the bar. And, anybody who's been on a campus where the students in this category are being admitted, coming with challenges, and we elevate them to the point where they meet the challenges, they go out into the world, and as I said before, they find themselves on an entirely different life trajectory from what they were expecting. And it's so inspirational to talk to them. I was talking to a young woman a while back who had grown up in foster care. And she had come to Westchester and she had a Pell Grant. She had the financial resources, but she had all these life challenges that she had to face. And she said to me, actually, tearing up, she said to me, my dorm room at the university is the nicest place I've ever lived in my entire life. And this is a young woman who came just with all kinds of challenges. And she was graduating as a social worker. She said, I want to be a social worker because a social worker helped me, and I want to help other people. And, these are the stories that give you goosebumps and make you want to get up the next day and come back to work or come out of retirement, as it were.
Finally, a sound, Joe. Well,
I had a victory in there.
I mean, tremendously meaningful. And when you think of students like that and what is it going to take and what are the resources PASSHE needs, I know one of the things that you have a lot of expertise in is navigating policy and regulation from a local level, a state level. And now we're experiencing many federal issues across higher education, which means that you came back from retirement at a time of great uncertainty around things like inclusivity. Will there be the money? I'm just curious, how do you see this landscape? Where are you in Westchester, as you have been very bold on diversity, equity, inclusion, that education is inclusive? Tell us a little bit about how are you navigating these uncertain times, especially when it comes to policy issues?
Well, having been a president through the pandemic, this is just one more adventure here. This is these are always interesting challenges, and if you aspire to be a university president and a problem solver, you embrace these challenges. That these are the things that we have to be able to do. And you're right. The federal landscape is challenging, but I believe that there is strong support for, even if there is if there are aspects of the Department of Education that people feel are inefficient, the student loan programs and the student grant programs are critically valuable, and everybody understands the opportunities that they are providing, and those opportunities, I believe, will continue to exist because. Say what you want about your politics around DEI. We are talking about providing opportunity for people who have the potential, but they are not in a position to be successful by themselves. And if we can give them the assistance, they're going to be able to step up and they're going to be able to be successful. And I'm optimistic that we will continue to see that support coming from the federal government, that students will still be able to get the kind of support they want. There's always the challenge that people talk about student loan debt, and I certainly understand that. If you keep in mind that an education is an investment, most people aren't able to buy a home or buy a car without borrowing money, and education has some similar characteristics. If you are in a position to be able to go to an affordable institution, if you need to borrow some money to finance the education, then okay, that's an investment in your future, and you'll pay it off over time. That's the intended model. Now, the real problem comes in when students are not successful. They don't complete the degree, and they walk away with the debt. That, to me, is the tragedy. And of course, what we need to focus on is to do everything within our power, as I said a moment ago, to make sure that if they come with a goal, we do everything we can do to help them achieve that goal. We're very focused on retention of students. What are the things that can happen? And there are so many different things that can happen that can derail a student who's in good academic standing. And we started to look at that at Westchester, and many other institutions are doing the same thing. Okay, somebody who was in good academic standing didn't come back the next semester. What happened? Let's go find out why. Sometimes a parent loses a job, or they don't have the money to pay a library fine or some silly thing. We need to make sure that we are not allowing students in that situation to stop out, because if they stop out, it's very unlikely that they're going to come back. And so, again, keeping them in the pipeline, getting them moving, if they can complete their degree. All the evidence shows that Joe, to your point earlier, a college degree is worth it. It's worth it in terms of the quality of your life as an educated person. It's worth it in terms of the added income that you're going to earn over your lifetime. And that is what we need to be focused on in terms of ensuring that our students are able to be successful, to manage their loans if they had to borrow money to go through school. It's about retention and graduation, and then preparing them to meet the needs of the Commonwealth, which becomes a virtuous cycle, because then we can see the legislature and the governor realizing the value of this education, providing us the support so that we, as we have done in Pennsylvania, we've held tuition level within the state system since 2018. It's unheard of.
Unheard of. Yeah.
During the period of inflation, you think about what's happened over that period of time. The CPI is up 28%, and we have held tuition level because we are committed to affordability for these students.
I can't think of another state or system that's been able to do that. So what a fantastic gift to students. And the good news is the investments that you've made in digital and modern, connecting the data, is absolutely what's going to give you the insights to understand at a very personal level, how are your students doing? Do you see signs that they may stop out? They haven't been able to pay on time they always did before. They're not swiping their meal card as much. Whatever that looks like, you'll be able to see that early and predict it and intervene and support students in the way they want to be supported. So that's the investment in digital that PASSHE's made, that is going to be all about putting your students first, which I know you think about every day.
Absolutely the truth. And you're right. Having these tools at our disposal to be able to track all these things and to be able to intervene before it's too late. If you can find out that somebody's $500 short, and you can say, here's $500, don't drop out, and then they stay, and then
it motivates them.
Then they keep going, and they realize that we care about them, that we want them to be successful, and so all these things are commingled to put us in a very good position to be successful with our students. And I haven't mentioned the faculty, but we have just across all of our disciplines, across all of our universities, we have incredible faculty who come to schools such as ours because they love to teach. They're passionate about being teachers, not just focusing on research. And these are the kind of people who put the time in and ensure that their students are successful. So I really need to tip my hat to our incredible faculty.
Amazing.
The faculty, like my father, who was a professor, that bring the magic to the student. And our job is to enable that every day and to connect the value so that we can make a case all the way up to what we've shared a governor's dashboard on the data around student success to support funding going more into education versus incarceration. Mm-hmm. And I know that the PASSHE system gets that. And as a leader, I can't even, holding down the costs as you have and illuminating more student success and onboarding and being inclusive is really why I said PASSHE is special. It's in a special state doing critical work that will be a model for many states across the country.
Well, thank you. We're proud of the work that we do and looking forward. That we have challenges, but we're looking forward to a very bright future, I believe, and completing the student record system that's going to enable us to improve the communication among all the campuses and to have all the information that we'll have at our fingertips to be able to make sure that we're aware of challenges that the students are facing. All these things are going to contribute to a higher retention rate, a higher level of success, and a higher impact, and then on from there. If we're going to be able to retain businesses in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we need to provide the workforce. If we're going to attract new businesses, we need to make sure that they know that they're going to be able to find a well-educated workforce when they get here. And these are critical roles that the state universities play in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
And we got a headquarters there too in Malvern, so that community is super important to us. I know Joe's going to have another question, and maybe I'll channel him or turn it over to you, Joe. But I think I want to channel both. Both of us want to think about where's PASSHE in the next 10 to 20 years. I don't know if you're going to stay for 20 years more,
Easy. He's in for 20. He knew it coming out of retirement. He's got another 20 behind him.
But you may beat me, but what do you want the future to look like? What is that 10? Let's just go 10 years ahead.
Well, we need to make sure that we are adapting to the circumstances around us. Higher ed is typically a little slow to adjust. And in many senses, it actually needs to be slow to adjust. If we chase every fad, we're going to be chasing our tails. And so we need to make sure that we're mindful of what's happening. We know that we're looking at a smaller high school graduating population well into the future. So we need to maintain a high level of flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. We know that there are many people out there who wish they finished their degree and they're interested in coming back. So we need to make sure that we continue to be a welcoming place for them. We need to continue our access mission, and we need to make sure we talked a little bit about the different generations of technology. We need to stay on top of the technology because it will continue to run out ahead of us. And if we don't stay with it, then we're going to become irrelevant. So those things are all critical. You mentioned at the beginning the new building at Westchester, the Sciences and Engineering Center. There's a huge biomedical engineering corridor up by where the Lucian office is, as a matter of fact, and into some of the surrounding counties. We need to make sure that in order for that industry to thrive, that we are graduating the kind of people who can fill those jobs for them. Philadelphia has become a huge hub for the cure for the COVID. The vaccine came out of the University of Pennsylvania, and we talked to the small startups in the city, and they need bench chemists and all these different people who support all these things. It's a very complex group of organizations, and they need a well-educated workforce. And that's the role that we will continue to be playing into the next decade and beyond.
One thing that has been a common theme here before we end the episode is the idea of a student-first mentality. I think many say it. There are many that say it. Not everybody practices it. If we're going to see a demographic decline in the college-age student, you have to keep more of the students that you do have. The only way you can do that is to make sure you have insights into your data, that you can provide intrusive advising, right? Because one thing we know, if you've ever worked in retention of students, is that, as particularly in a public institution or community college, sometimes it's just a $50 bill that erodes the self-confidence of the student. It actually has nothing to do with the amount of the bill and everything to do with the self-confidence that gets rocked, and the student goes, it's just not a good time right now. And once they leave, that good time never comes back, because every other bill is a justification why now's not the right time. And if you've ever worked in retention in an institution that really doubles down on it, everything that you do has to revolve around that student in order for you to get retention and persistence up the way you want it. And that means going in with technology student first, Chris. And I was so happy to hear you executing on this vision of a student first mentality and methodology, because that's what it takes to be impactful in an industry where the student to faculty relationship is still at the center of everything that we do.
Yes, and I think the thing, as I reflect on my 8 years as president of Westchester, the thing I'm most proud of is that we simplified our mission statement to it's actually a sentence, but it comes down to student success. And you walk around and you talk to people who work at Westchester University and ask them what the mission of Westchester University is, and they will say student success. We have successfully achieved that. And I was at Westchester. There are 9 other universities in the Pennsylvania system, and you'll find the same thing at every one of our campuses. We are a system of universities focused on student success, and the commitment to the technology as we move forward, again, critical to us having the tools and the knowledge that we need to be able to support these students.
Laura, I have to tell you that having you co-host is a joy, and I know you believe in the student-first methodology and mentality because that's everything that we do at Ellucian, and I'm so proud and happy that Ellucian sponsors the President Series and that you introduced me to Chris, and this has been a great conversation, don't you think?
Yes, I told you it was going to be special, and the partnership and the leadership that PASSHE has is really going to be a model for us to work with other states and other systems. So we're excited. Just thinking, waking up every morning, knowing that your students will be even more successful, and finding those students that may have stopped out or are afraid that come back, and that knowing that you're an inclusive system makes all the difference. So thank you for your leadership and for everything that PASSHE is doing to give back.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here, Laura and Joe. It's been a pleasure to meet you and to chat with you. Obviously, I've spent my career in higher ed, and I'm always happy to have a conversation about it. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And Laura, it's great to work with you on our other collaboration, and looking forward to really leveraging that to the future success of our students. So thank you very much.
Well, Laura called this out, everyone, and that is the next episode of the EDIP Experience will happen with Chris Fiorentino in the year 2045. After 20 more years of leading an institution of higher education. We'll catch up with him later, perhaps.
Mark your calendar.
Mark your calendar. If you're listening to that up for that long, I absolutely love you. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been our guest today. He's the one and only Dr. Chris Fiorentino. He's the interim chancellor of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.
Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets.